Hello, welcome to another session of the FA Kids Workshop. We're going to be kicking it off with Luke 6:27 through 28. And once again, it's your girl, Jenna. So Luke 6:27 through 28 says, "Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you." Today we're going to be talking about how showing God to toxic people can change your child's life. Showing God to toxic people can change your child's life. So something that we can often do as people is criticizing people in front of other people. And children, newsflash, are people. They're little people, but they're going to grow up and be leaders in society. So with that, we should also remember that children are also of the church. They are part of the church. Often we say that children are the future church, and what we really mean by that is that children are future leaders of the church. So these little human beings that we have in our care, when we're saying things that we don't often mean to say, or when we say toxic things, often we're teaching our children those toxic traits and passing them down. So some of these toxic traits could be criticizing people in front of their children. So when you see someone, in public and you talk badly about them, or your dinner conversations are a time to roast people or talk badly about people, or maybe you have the toxic habit of judging people who you don't even know, where you're like in the grocery store commenting about how someone looks, or you're in the drive-thru talking about the way that someone is dressing, going into the restaurant, or maybe you're commenting about how someone is living their life on the internet, and you're doing it in front of your kids because it's everywhere, right? Labeling people as bad instead of human, teaching kids to judge instead of understanding that everyone makes mistakes and here and there because of sin and lack of wisdom. This could be as simple as saying, "Oh, she's just a bad mom," or "This guy is trash," or "People will never change." It's assuming the worst about others and jumping to negative conclusions and saying the bad thing out loud without realizing that our children are listening. And our children are like sponges, so they're picking up all of these things. It's saying stuff like, "Oh, she's only wearing that for attention," or "I bet they're lying," or "They're so lazy," instead of saying, "She doesn't know better," or "It's out of my control," or "They must be burnt out." It's modeling what we should be doing, rather, is modeling forgiveness and healthy boundaries, letting kids hear and handle conflict and hurt calmly by saying things like, "I forgive," or "I understand where they might be, but I'm still going to protect myself, and I'm going to still have my perspective, or maybe view things differently than they do, and that's okay, because what makes the world work is having different perspectives and different views on things. If we all viewed things and saw things the same way, then we wouldn't see the Bible as being true, because the Bible says we live in a broken and sinful world. And so when we say, "I forgive, but I will still protect myself," this teaches that forgiveness is about freedom. It's realizing that we are the prisoner, and when we forgive others, we are setting ourselves free, not the person that we are holding unforgiveness to. And showing that grace doesn't mean accepting the bad behavior, and it doesn't mean assuming the worst. It just means modeling forgiveness. Sometimes we may model unforgiving, bitter talk, replying or replaying old grudges like they're entertainment in our lives, saying stuff like, "I'll never forgive her for that," and bringing up the same person's offense over and over again. Proverbs 22 verses 24 through 25 says, "Don't make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one who is easily angered, lest you learn their ways and get yourself into a snare," which basically means turn yourself into one of them. A good way to live our lives is living it like we're at a Coldplay concert, which is kind of funny, but it's a good way to remember it. The Coldplay concert, if you don't remember, was the guy that got caught cheating because his affair became public because of the screen that panned over to him during the concert. And so he got caught. And how we should be living our lives is knowing that God is our screen. God is constantly watching us, and he's not a God that's ready to strike us at any time, but rather he's watching us, hoping that we will reflect him to other people around us. And by creating safe conversations and safe places where, like, family meals aren't a gossip zone, and we encourage our kids to ask questions about people instead of judging them first, and to express our feelings in fairness, then we are opening ourselves to helping our kids show the love of Christ first before we show judgment, which is what the Pharisees, the legalist people in the Bible, were accused of, was judgment over love. When we encourage our kids to ask questions about people, feelings, and fairness, we're opening that door. And if we feel uncomfortable with doing this, then we have trained our brain to be okay with toxic patterns, whether we realize it or not, that make us think that we have to have it all together and we have to preserve our image and that we're somehow better than others because we have God's grace. And that's not at all what we should be doing. We should be allowed to express our feelings, but we should do that without judging others. John 11:35 says Jesus wept. So if Jesus wept, it's okay to show emotion because God gave us these emotions, but we should not do it at the expense of hurting others and seeing people as objects rather than human beings who are sinful, who need help. We should see them as people who need help, not someone that should be criticized. And what we should do in replacement of this habit is by praying, making prayer a habit for dealing with frustration or judgment, asking God to help us see people like he does. Because when we don't see people as people and we start seeing them as objects, that's how death becomes normalized. So that could be war, abortion, whatever it may be in your mind, in your worldview. That's exactly how hate becomes normalized, how death becomes normalized, how mistreatment becomes normalized. We need to stop seeing people as people that we need to be judging and start saying it's out of my control. They don't know better. And we must be the people to reach out to them because the time is coming where we won't be able to do that for them because everybody has a timeline and we never know when theirs is going to be up. So instead of talking about people negatively, try forgiving them and creating a space where we're showing our kids that love should come first before toxic habits. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry for going a little overtime, and I hope you guys have an amazing and blessed week. Bye.